All right, well, it's a little after 1. I think it's prime time to get started. So thank you all for joining. My name is Johnny. I'm Pozotron's Customer Outreach Manager. I've also got our wonderful CEO, Adam Fritz, on the call as well. And today we're going to be going through the essential features and techniques in Pozotron. So whether you've used us before or this is your first look, we hope to teach you how to use our primary tools and show you the basic workflow of using Pozotron. As we go through this, please feel free to drop any questions you have in the Q&A box. We'd love to answer your questions live. Usually one question asked by somebody helps the entire group, so feel free to drop them in the Q&A box. And with that, we'll get started. So today we're going to be going through the entire workflow of Pozotron, starting with creating a project. I'll show you how to use our script prep tools to ensure efficiency through recording. We're going to go through our proofing tool and exports, our audio analysis tool, some best practices of using Pozotron, and show any new features that we've added recently that you might not be aware of. Okay, I'm actually going to pull up Pozotron. So this is Pozotron. This is what it looks like when you get logged in. So to use any of our tools, you do need to upload the manuscript, which you can do so using this Create New Project button here. And this may look a little bit different than what you're used to, actually, because we did recently update the UI. So if I return to the projects page, up at the very top here, you'll see there's a Back to Old UI button. So if I click that, you'll see the standard look of Pozotron. So if it looks a little bit different, you want to try out our new UI, just notice this little button up here. And not only does it change the look, but it also has some additional functionality. So we've introduced folders into the new UI so you can organize your projects by folder, which you'll see I've got a couple of folders listed here. There's also a new help button, which is a little bit more, gives you more options for getting in touch with us and viewing our tutorials. So I'd suggest taking a look at that. You can always request support here, but there is a new tutorials page, link to our help centers, all of our previous webinars, and a button to book a demo with us if you ever want a one-on-one call. So if it looks a little bit different, just wanted to show you I'm in the new UI, and we will be updating the rest of the studio with this UI as well in the future. But to use any of our tools, you will want to use this Create New Project button here. You'll give it a title, so usually the name of the book or the name of the project you're working on. And the script goes in here. So manuscript, transcript, that can be a PDF, EPUB, or Word document. Those are really the only required fields. You can enter more details in here, such as a customer name. You can pick which folder you'd like to store the project in. List any project details in here, such as ISBN or ID number, due dates, statuses, and notes. So there's a whole bunch of stuff you can add to increase organization. But if you just want to get started, give it a title, upload the script here, and hit Create New Project. I'll quickly touch on the sensitivity. Oh, go ahead, Adam. Sorry.
Just a quick question reminder, please use the Q&A box and not the chat for questions. But a question from Brenna, can we use tutorials with no charge to our account? We do provide free trials. So if you do want to play around with some tutorial content, just shoot us an email and we can, if you already have an account, just shoot us an email to help@pozotron.com and we can give you some free credits to try some things out. So please just shoot us an email, and reminder, please use the Q&A box.
Yep, and we do give free training as well. So if you'd ever like to, these tutorials are always free to access. Booking a demo with us is really just booking a call with us, and those are always free. We want to help you use the tool as much as we can. So yeah, we'll never charge you for that. But once you've created a project, it will populate down here. And to actually use our tools, you'll click on one of these thumbnails. That'll bring you into the project here. And at the very top, you'll see these tabs. So these are all of the different tools that Pozotron has that you have available to you. You'll just want to navigate to each of the tabs here to actually access those tools. So the prep tools, I'll show these first because the workflow with Pozotron, really you can upload your script before you've even begun recording and use our prep tools that will assist you when recording the project you're working on. So in the pronunciation tab, when you upload your script, Pozotron will scan every single word in your script and put together a list for you of all of the potential difficult words, interesting words, made up words. We'll actually flag all of this with a suggestions list. So if I click this button, this will pull up every word that Pozotron thinks you might need help pronouncing. So it's going to look at capitalized rare words, complex words, and foreign words. So complex words are any words. We actually had narrators go through a giant list of 150,000 words and rate them simple or complex. So any of those complex words will get pulled onto this list. And we'll also inspect the actual characters that make the word, and based off of certain combinations, we'll deem it complex or simple, and it'll get pulled onto this list. There is a new feature that I'll show you here, which is the suggestion sensitivity. So we recognize that everybody has different vocabularies, and some people might want to see only the super complex words, or they'd want a bigger list of words, and you can actually influence the kinds of words that Pozotron will suggest to you using this slide bar here. So for complex and foreign words, we can set Pozotron to show you more suggestions. Excuse me, or you can pull it down to fewer, so it'll only show you really, really complex words. So if I move this to more and hit save, we can see right here I've got 2 complex words on the list, but if I hit save here, it's increased that number to 20. So there's a bunch of new words on the list. And if I wanted to just see really complex words, I can move that to fewer. And we'll see it's only got 1 word on the complex category now. Question from David H. Lawrence the 17th. Is there a dark mode display setting native to Pause, or should we just use a browser plugin? I would love a dark mode. It is currently not available. It is on our development roadmap, but it is surprisingly difficult thing to do. If you are aware of any plugins that work on our site, I would love to know about. Yeah, it's a lot of light, and we spent a lot of time looking at our screen, so I'm on your team there. So this sensitivity here, I'm just going to move this up to more. But once you have your list kind of set the way you'd like, you can research these words using any of the integrated dictionaries that we have on Pozotron. So we've got Oxford US, Oxford Great Britain, Forvo, Merriam-Webster, and Pronounceology. These are all really good dictionaries that we are directly integrated with. So you just choose whatever dictionary you'd like. And if you add any words to your research list, you'll see it pulls the phonetic spelling and a recording of these words. So it instantly researches them. If it's found, it can hit play
Algorithm. Abortive.
to listen to any of these pronunciations. You can also ignore words. So if you don't need this word on your list, you can hit ignore. That'll just remove it. You can also ignore a word in all projects. So if Positron's suggesting a word that you are never going to need to research, you can click this button and it'll tell Positron, hey, never suggest this to me. I got it. So you can have more control over what shows up on these lists. I'm just going to add a bunch of these words. It looks like we do have a question from Stephen or Stefan. I'm doing German audiobooks and found the script preparing a bit difficult. The connection to pronunciation platforms are a bit weak. Often my words aren't found. So I'll show you a couple things that I'd recommend doing on that. So your resources if your book is detected in another language, I believe you only have access to Forvo, but we do have additional resources on the right side here. So for example, if this word, atavism, didn't show up with a pronunciation, I'm just going to remove this and hit save. I can actually manually research this word using our one-click links on the right-hand side. So these we're not directly integrated with, where it won't pull the pronunciation to Pozotron. But we are able to, if I wanted to look this word up in English or how'd you say, or any of these dictionaries here. So this will
Sorry,
bring
Johnny,
me.
I'm back now. What was your question?
I'm
Oh,
just
all good.
joining from my phone.
Just for other languages like
Mhm.
German, the dictionaries that show up, is Forvo the only directly integrated one?
It is, yes.
Right.
There's very few non-English dictionaries that have APIs. So there's one other in German we'd like to do, but their development team isn't super responsive. So Forvo is the only option from an API
Gotcha.
perspective for now.
Gotcha. So until we add more, you will want to use these one-click links like Youglish here. So if I hit play on this video,
a slipping backwards into atavism.
so here I can see the pronunciation for that word or hear that, come back to Pozotron and actually record this pronunciation. Atavism, atavism. Then I can even put a phonetic spelling in here, but these links are here to help you in case the word is not found in a regular dictionary. But Stefan, if you do have any suggestions on what German dictionaries you'd like to see in Positron, please let us know because we're looking for more to add. It looks like we have a few questions. Trish, is the elimination of words on the word list forever particular to the user or client? A great example is the word route. So it's specific to your account. So if you're in this suggestions list here and you press ignore word in all projects, this just applies to your account. So Positron will never suggest this word to you. However, it might still suggest it to other people. Hope that answers your question. And Marina, when using the pronunciation guide, is there a way to keep only the singular instance of a word and have it catch the plural versions as well? Or do they have to stay as two different entries? That's a good point. So Positron's very literal with these words. So if you had asperity and then you had asperities, it would not recognize that those are, the same word, one plural and one not. So I'd suggest right now to have them as separate, but that is, something we can take back to our team to see if we can teach it to recognize plural versus singular. But for now, if you would like to store the pronunciation for both, yes, you'd want to have it as two separate accounts.
Johnny, just here for the answer to the endnotes question.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually two things you can do here that would help because I had this on a demo recently. So other than like removing those pages from the PDF when you upload it, one thing that you can do is if you can show off the page filter. So let's say if you're in the demo project here, let's say if you go from pages like 10 to 20, the page filter on the right. So what you can do is you could actually, as a start, you could actually go and if for argument's sake, the end notes are from page 200 to 210, you could use that page filter, only show those words that will only appear in the end notes, ignore all of those, and then go back. So that is one thing. You can use that page filter to go through, easily ignore those with just by clicking ignore, 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 and then clearing the page filter, and then it will no longer suggest anything from that section of the text.
Yeah, it's a very underutilized feature, I think, actually. There's a page filter right here. So you just enter your page range. It'll only show you words within those specific pages. So that can help. And yeah, we actually have one more from Stefan. Forvo is often fine. But when it comes to mixed content like English names and German audiobooks, that's a good point. And maybe we could even have the option to use an English book, even if you're English dictionary, even if the book has been identified as German. So that's an idea that I'll pass on to the devs after this. Thank you, Stefan. All right, that was a lot of questions. Keep them coming. But this is, where was I on pronunciation guide? So showed you how to use the list, these one-click links on the right-hand side. One feature that is really, really important is this cloud button right here. So if you are not aware what this does, if a word comes back blank or you'd want to hear different pronunciations of a word, this cloud button is a huge time saver. This will just show you everything that Positron was able to find, including multiple entries from Forvo. So it'll find, if it's listed in our regular dictionaries, it'll have them here that you can listen to.
Abortive. Abortive. Abortive.
And if you like any of these pronunciations better, click this plus button to add it to the research list. But Forvo will also have multiple entries if it's found on there and it has an English pronunciation or a French pronunciation. You're able to listen to those here as well. So if a word comes back blank, the first thing I'd recommend is using this button right there. Okay, let's pull up here so I can see what we're going to next. So if you have any questions on the pronunciation guide, please let me know. But otherwise, actually a couple more features I'll quickly show. So under our import export button, there's a lot of handy ways to import to Pozotron and to export. So if you don't even want to use our suggestions list, or you want to use this in combination with your own list of words, you can add any word you want up in this custom word field here. So I can add Johnny there, and it's going to research that and see how many times it comes up in the book. You can also import an entire list. So if you read through the manuscript beforehand, I know some narrators that'll do that, and they put words onto a list. They can have 50 words on a list somewhere, copy and paste them in here. I'm just thinking random words here, but you can have up to 200 words in one import. If I hit save here, it added them all instantly. It found the words. Obviously, those are very simple words, but our suggestions list tries to help you find those words. But if there's additional words, this import feature is really, really helpful. You can also import from Excel, and you can export to Excel, or export a offline version of this Pozotron page that'll have MP3s for every pronunciation of the words on your list. So there's lots of ways to, I would recommend playing around with these options here, as they can save you a lot of time and help you customize Pozotron to what you prefer. You can also share this with anybody you'd like using the Share Online Packet button. This creates a read-only version of your pronunciation guide. Really helpful for if you want to share this with someone, but you don't want them to change anything or delete anything. You can send this to them, and they'll have a read-only version here, be able to listen to the pronunciations and approve the pronunciations or help you collaborate. Question from Marina: is MP3 the most Pozotron-friendly file type? I tried importing phonetic audio recordings today in M4A, and it wouldn't recognize the files. That is a good question. I do believe they have to be
MP3. Oh,
MP3s.
interesting. Yeah,
no.
we do accept M4As. Could you shoot us a quick email with the project name? Maybe shoot a Google Drive folder with the files you were trying to upload, and if you got any warning messages, that would be great, so we could play around with that, because it should not.
It should work, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, you have to have the file names be exactly matching the word in your list. So what this feature does for everybody watching, if I had a bunch of words on my list here that did not have audio, and let's say I reached out to my author and said, hey, all these made up words, can you send me MP3s of their pronunciations? So they send those over, and you want to put those in Pozotron. You can actually import audio files as long as the name of the audio files match the entry of the word. So abortive would have to be called abortive.mp3, and same with algorithm.mp3. So all of those files would have to be named after the entry, and then you could actually import them all in here, and it'll update everything on your list with all the files you uploaded. So lots of hidden little features under this import export button. Might as well go through them all. Transfer research allows you to pull all of the research from one project to another. Really useful if you're working on a series of audiobooks. I can pull all the research from book 1 over to book 2, and it will automatically hide any words that don't reappear in the second book as well. So you'll just see a relevant list of pronunciations to your new project. So lots of handy features in there, but we have to go through a lot. So I'm going to move on to the character guide. So the character guide, it works similarly to the pronunciation guide. It's going to scan your book. However, it's going to look for characters and character names. So if I hit open suggestions here, you see a list of names here, and I can add these to my list. I'm going to add Sherlock, and I can also add Watson. And you'll also see some of these names have this AI tag here. So this is a feature that's in beta right now, but a new feature that we've been improving over the last 6 months or so. But what this does, if I add any character that has this AI tag to my characters guide, Just going to add that, and I'm going to add all 3 of these. What this will do is if I return to my character list, you'll see a lot of these are filled out automatically. Now, Sherlock was filled out because I had researched this character previously and saved his details to my account. But the rest of these were researched by Pozotron. So Gatsby was able to, or Pozotron was able to identify Gatsby is, the male gender and has an urgent, matter of fact, or distant voice description somewhere in the book. So Pozotron's actually looking for cues about characters in the book to help you research these characters faster. If it doesn't have an AI tag like Watson, it comes through blank and gives you an area to enter their character description, to enter their voice notes, and also gives you a place to record as many voice samples as you'd like. So you can record 30-second clips of your character speaking and then be able to refer to them at any time.
Just a question from a user. Are the recorded clips shared with anyone? So no, they are not. They are just for your account only. And do we use them in any way? No, we do not. We do not use them for training or anything like that. Eventually in future, we may allow people to opt into like a shared dictionary where you would be able to access this shared dictionary for anyone who opted in and wanted to share. However, just like Forvo, when you crowdsource things, you're opening yourself up to potential issues or mistakes. So that's not something that we're currently doing, but it is potential in the future, and that would be an opt-in situation. So no, just for your account and and we do not do anything with it from a data perspective.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yep, so only you can access these, and it does go into one more feature that I'd like to show, which includes the character guide. So we don't want you to have to research something more than once, no matter what project you're on. If you want to access your previous research, it's all stored in your projects. However, again, under the import-export button here, there are a couple of buttons at the bottom to transfer all characters to the character guide or add characters from the character guide. And what this is your account specific character guide. So if I actually go to my profile here by clicking my email up in the top right, going to profile, see there's a bunch of tabs in here for billing, for updating your email, things like that. But the pronunciation dictionary and character guide are also listed here. So these are words that I saved to my account, and I can also do that with any characters. So you'll see there's a bunch of characters in here with all of their notes, their voice recordings that are always going to be available to me that are not project specific either. So each time you create a character, if you save it to your character guide, no matter at what point in the future, you can come in here. If you have 100 voices you've developed on your list, you can reference any of them just by searching in here, viewing them, and you can also pull these characters into any project that you'd like, any project that you're working on. So that is really useful. I know there's one narrator I talked to was doing a 12-book series or something, and it's great that you can transfer research between projects, but she also just saved it all to her account. So she has access to all of the characters and all of the words she's ever researched. Okay, so finishing up with the prep tools, last thing I want to show you here is the export marked script button. So this is a really useful way to integrate your research in Pozotron to your manuscript. So if I click this gives me a head start in marking up my script. You can customize what kind of data you want to include. I'm just going to have everything turned on here and hit export marked script. This downloads a copy of the script that I uploaded. If I open that up and I find in here, I'm going to find Sherlock. You'll see Sherlock's been highlighted on every occurrence. So is Watson. Any character on my list will be highlighted in blue. And the really useful thing is if I hover over Sherlock, I'll actually see the voice notes, the character description, and have a link to any of the voice samples that I recorded in Pozotron. So it's a really easy way for you to pull all that data into your script. Same with pronunciations. Let me see what word I have on here. So any of these words, it'll also have the phonetic spelling. Oh, that's not even in here. Atavism. So we'll see all of these words are highlighted as well. And if you hover over them, you'll see the phonetic spelling and also have a link to the recordings. So useful feature if you do mark up your script, you'll always have access to that. Okay, good. I think we've covered everything there. If you do have any other questions, let me know. Oh, it looks like we do actually. Is a marked up script still only available for PDFs? I always request a Word doc from authors so that I can change the font and size. That is really, it's a really good idea because Word documents are much more manageable, but the marked script does still only work for PDFs. Adam, I don't know if you have any insight to add on if we're going to be including EPUBs and Word docs in the marked script, but currently PDFs are
Yeah,
only available.
yes, there are plans to do the Word side of things. To automatically work with Word files is quite difficult. EPUBs, no. To my knowledge, there's no way to do that automatically, and so that's not in our roadmap. Reality is we're building a teleprompter, and we'd like everyone to, quite frankly, we'd like everyone to start using the teleprompter that we're building, which will have an export feature, but will be so much more comprehensive in the way that you're able to mark things up. So Word is in the plans likely, but it's not scheduled. EPUB, there's no plans to do it, but just stay tuned for the teleprompter.
Yes, that'll be very exciting. And I saw someone asked if we're going to be covering scan occurrences. That's actually not on the agenda, but I could quickly go through that actually, because it is a part of our script prep tools. So let me pull that up really quickly. Just a quick overview of this. If you do use any of our script prep tools, you will have access to scan occurrences. What this does is it takes every word from your pronunciation guide and character guide. You can also add any word you'd like up here. But this allows you to scan your audio that you've uploaded for every occurrence of this word in your audio, and actually allows you to listen to each time you said this word in a short clip.
Chapter 1.
So this would show me every time that Sherlock is said in the audio files. Really a project saver if you mispronounced a word throughout the whole project. You can pop it in scan occurrences, find every occurrence of it, select those occurrences, and then either export them as DAW markers or mark them as pickups in the proofing tool. So really, really helpful if you need to find a particular instance of word throughout your project. But with that, let's move on to the proofing tool. So our proofing tool, if you've never used it, allows you to upload your audio files. So again, you'll want to navigate to proofing to access this tool. These are all of the audio files I've uploaded. To proof any audio, you just drag and drop the audio files here or click it to browse. You can upload MP3, FLAC, or WAV files. The only limitation is one file can't be longer than 2 hours. So you want to split it up if it's longer than that. It'll take some time to process, usually somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. You'll see the status of that update. And when it's done, you'll see this number. So this is the amount of potential mistakes that Pozotron found. And we call them annotations. So these are the amount of annotations that Pozotron's made. We don't mark anything as a pickup. We just mark things with annotations. And then allow the proofer to view these in more detail and actually decide if these are pickups or not. So clicking open proofing will bring you to our proofing interface. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Here you'll see the script. It's synchronized to the audio, so you can click anywhere in the script to update the time bar at the top. And then if I hit play, I can listen back from that point.
Technical support make the best performances more accurate.
So it'll highlight each word as it's said to make it really easy to follow along. You can also use the space bar to play and pause the audio, which is a bit easier. But you'll see these red underlines, and all of these are also listed on the left-hand side here. These are the annotations that Pozotron's made, where it tells you what it found and gives you an area to select OK, to ignore a particular suggestion. You can mark it as a pickup, which will indicate that it needs to be fixed. You can also mark it as a typo. So I'll show you the 5 kinds of things Pozotron will find with this short section here.
Our audio proofing tool is designed to catch the key mistakes your narrator may make during narration, including words accidentally added into the script by the narrator.
So here it found an inserted word. So the narrator said the word accidentally when it wasn't written in the script. So this is where you tell Pozotron either this is okay or I need to fix this. I'm going to mark that as a pickup. And it does look like we got a question from Stefan in the proofing
Yeah, I
tool.
was going to tackle that when you got to the noises.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do it then. That actually makes sense. So other kinds of things Pozotron will find are missing words.
Words missed from the script. Of course.
So if these words were not said, so it's flagged these as words missing, mark that as a pickup.
Of course, it will find misperceptions and misspoken words.
So any misreads or mispronunciations, it'll flag. This is a good time to tell you about the filter out button as well. So the filter out button allows you to, if you're getting a flag for a mispronunciation on a word that, let's say it's a made up word, so Pozotron might not know exactly how it should be pronounced, but it keeps flagging it every time you say it as a mispronunciation. If you'd like to ignore, instead of just clicking OK every time that comes up, you can also click this filter out button, which is similar to the add to dictionary button in spell check, where it'll ignore this word or this particular mistake throughout the entire project. So very, very helpful there. You can also use filter out on any of our annotations. Moving on to pauses.
Pauses longer than 2 seconds. Noises.
So pauses are also flagged, anything longer than 2 seconds. Again, the filter out button's here. So if this length of pause is acceptable, you can hit filter out, and that'll change the threshold from a 2-second pause to 2.4 or whatever this exact pause is. So I'm going to filter that out and background noises.
Noises including audio distortions, synthetic sound issues, and natural noises like a dog barking or a fire truck siren.
And I hope you don't have any dogs listening, but here there was some clipping in the audio file, so we'll catch that as well as any background noises. And Adam, I'll pass it to you to talk about
So the question was about noise detection. So we have done a complete retraining at the end of 2024. So it dramatically increased the accuracy and decreased the number of false annotations. However, it's not going to be perfect, and no noise detection tool is perfect. So if you see false annotations, either something that has been flagged as, you gasp and it tells you there's a pig in your booth or something like that, which doesn't really happen anymore. Use that report incorrect noise classification, because we use that to do a couple things. One, to track the actual accuracy and how people are perceiving our noise detection feature. But then two, we actually use that to continually retrain our algorithms. So yes, it is improved, and Liz, I believe, just said it's way improved. But please use that report incorrect noise classification. It is very, very helpful to us. Other questions? Answer that one. How does the pronunciation work if you have a British accent? So I'm assuming you mean pronunciation in our proofing tool. The vast majority of our hundreds of thousands of hours of audio sounds like me, or like Johnny or I, even though I'm Canadian. It is a North American speech that is making up the bulk of our data set. So essentially, the less you sound like us, the more potential false annotations you will see. It does not mean it's going to miss things. It's not going to miss actual pickups, but the best example I have is I have a number of Irish friends. They pronounce the number 30 as 30 in many cases. And so it would suggest that as a potential mistake, even though it's authentic to the accent. So the less like a standard North American accent you sound, the more false annotations you will get, but it will not miss things.
I will also add on to that something I touched upon early when creating a project. A lot of our narrators that have accented, if they're doing accented work or if they have an accent, our sensitivities can help with that. So the proofing sensitivity, if they're getting a lot of false positives because of their accent, they can move it to relaxed. And Pozotron is still incredibly accurate on relaxed, but it does influence the pronunciation detection a little bit and can reduce the amount of false positives. And Stefan, for you as well, the noise detection, if you're getting tons of false positives, but you still want the noise detection on, You can also move this down to relaxed. Again, it's still very, very accurate, but it should help a little bit with the amount of suggestions you're getting. So,
yeah, good point there, Johnny. Question from William: how are the total times calculated? If I have breaks in my jaw, I imagine that isn't included. So the time is calculated based on the length of the audio file. So if you upload an hour of audio and there's 5 minutes of silence in there, we have actually had to pay, in terms of we're charged through our cloud service providers to process that hour of audio. So you are charged based on the length of the audio file, regardless if there is empty space in there. So William, in terms of your recommending best practices, the times I read on a proofing report are not matching up on later chapters. So definitely book a demo with us to go through this specific use case and the specific issue you're seeing. And then finally, there is a question from Liz. I am going to handle this at the end, Johnny. So if you can prompt me to talk about copyright and that kind of stuff.
cool.
I will make sure not to forget that.
Will do. Great. I'm just trying to remember where I'm at. Okay, so a couple more things to show in the proofing tool, and then we'll move on to audio analysis. But you may have noticed there's a new box up in the top left of your proofing page. And this is really helpful for integrating your prep work that you did in the pronunciation guide and character guide into the proofing interface. So here, if I turn these on, we'll see that certain words are highlighted now, certain characters. And let me actually go into another chapter where you might see more. So Sherlock and Watson, all these characters are on my character guide. These are highlighted, and if I click them, I'll actually see the notes that I put into my character guide straight in the proofing tool. So this is really helpful for listening to Sherlock's dialogue. So if I hit play here to listen to a sentence that he's saying,
well, Watson, what do you make of it?
Then I can click on Sherlock and listen to the voice note, and I don't know what's on here, so hello, Watson. That's me, but so you can compare the actual line of dialogue that was recorded in your chapter to the voice note. So you can make sure that the voice was the correct character and just refer to these notes whenever you need to when you're proofing. Also, any word, obviously this is a very simple word, but any word on your pronunciation guide will be highlighted in yellow and allow you to check the pronunciation of the word.
Table.
So if it's a word you need to make sure is said a specific way, you can listen to the agreed upon pronunciation in your pronunciation guide and then compare to the audio.
Breakfast table.
So there we go. So that's script sync. It's really, really helpful. Make sure you're aware of that. The other thing I didn't mention is if you are listening if you notice something that you want to change that Pozotron did not flag, you can click and highlight any section of the text and press this create pickup button. This will allow you to enter your own pickups, to enter any notes, which is really useful for listening to things like tone or pacing or things you want to change that Pozotron might not detect, but you can still highlight and select all of those things. And Craig, glad to hear it. He said script sync is awesome, and that's awesome. We're proud of it. Okay, we're getting a little close to the end, so I might speed up. The last thing to show you is if you are just trying to quickly scan through Pozotron's notes, maybe someone else is going to do a full proofing, but you just want to get ahead of any of the big mistakes, you can use Pozotron to just spot check these annotations. If I open up a chapter, instead of starting at the beginning and listening through to everything, you can use Pozotron to just quickly jump through these suggestions. So I'll show you quickly this button, which will show you all of our different hotkeys. Now there's a lot on here, but the important ones are A on your keyboard will mark things as okay. D will mark things as pickup. Spacebar will play and pause the audio. So just using those 3 shortcuts, which I can use with my left hand, I'm going to select the top annotation here, and I can press spacebar to listen to it.
Chapter 1.
And if that's fine, I can now, with this selected, I can press A to mark it as okay. So it marked it as okay, and it also skipped to the next suggestion on the list and actually skipped to that point in the audio. So if I hit play now,
Piper's Run. Read by Avon Shore.
So that's a pickup. I can go to the next one.
Back. She was zooming in the video,
So that's a pickup as well. I can go to the next one.
Odd. It didn't look corroded so much as
It's the
gnarled.
wrong
It
word.
had begun to pour out the near side of the sinkhole.
That missed a word.
She tried to connect again with video and audio.
That's a
Replied.
flip-flop. So here I'm just bouncing through all of these suggestions here, skipping over everything else. So I just want you to be aware of this workflow in case you do need just to do a quick spot check of Pozotron. And Dan, glad to hear it. We're slowly adding more and more. So yeah, there's a ton of hotkeys in here that you can familiarize yourself with. Question from William. You mentioned pacing. Any plans to add something to note if you vary your pace too much or talk too fast, etc.? It's an interesting question. Adam, any thoughts on that?
We've thought about it before. It's just really hard to do because, what if, so it's very difficult to do. It's something we can definitely think about. It won't be on the near term, but it's a great idea. And we should probably put some time into figuring out how we would do that. Good suggestion.
Thanks, William. All right, moving on to the export options. So there are two main export options I want to show you today. But the most important one, in my opinion, and the most time-saving one I hear, I'm just going to mark the rest of these as okay, so that we've got this chapter done. So once you've gone through and proofed in Pozotron, obviously you still need to do the editing. You still need to actually fix these mistakes. So we have a couple of handy reports to hopefully massively increase the efficiency of that. And the main one is here using DAW markers. So clicking DAW markers from the import export dropdown, you'll be able to choose whatever DAW you're using. Got most of the popular ones on the list here. Cubase was very recently added as well. But you select your DAW and you can set some options for timestamps for making them relative to the start of each chapter or section or the entire book. If you have your session set up with all of the audio in one session, or if they're split up into different ones, you can change the way the timestamps are organized. If I hit export, it downloads a folder with every single one of my chapters, its own DAW marker file. Now, each DAW is different with the way you import these, but if I pull up the presentation again, you'll see the end result. In Audacity, it has the audio in the top track, and this second track is what was imported from Pozotron. So it'll show you exactly where these mistakes were found at the exact timestamp where they occur. So big time saver. If you do have questions on how to import it into the DAW you're working with, we have a lot of videos on our YouTube channel which show you, which Lindsay just put in the chat. So if you need help getting those into your session, you can use that or reach out to us. And a lot of people use that in combination with the pickup packet. So here I can export a report. This is an automatic report that will show me every single one of my annotations marked pickup. If I scroll down and I have this, I can have this open next to my session and have the correct portion of the script that I need to reread, the timestamp, the issue that was identified, the original audio, have all of this available here. So having this side by side with your session can be helpful. Well, thanks, Liz. That's very nice to hear. Love to hear it. All right. Moving on to the audio analysis tool. So now we've gone through prep, we've gone through proofing, then the editing, which you would do using our DAW markers. Once you've finished all that, you can use one of our tools called audio analysis. This is best to be used after mastering, before you are shipping this off to a distributor or publisher or anything like that. You can use our audio analysis tool. So these are all of my files. Like I said, I'd suggest uploading the mastered files here. Just drag and drop them in here. And then you can choose a preset. And these presets are different specifications. So we have ACX as the default one. There's Spotify in here, Audiobooks Unleashed, Authors Republic, different specifications for each of these. And if I press show analysis, it's going to compare my files to the specifications of whatever I've selected. So we can see here a lot of these failed, and I can click this down arrow to see exactly what was wrong with these files. So it checks their file duration, their sample rate, sample peak, RMS, noise floor, top and tail duration, duplicates, checks if there are duplicate files, so if you've accidentally uploaded more than the same chapter twice, the format, bitrate, so pretty much anything you need to check for, audio analysis will check against those presets. You can create your own as well. So adding a preset, you can set your own specifications. If you have a particular client that needs them in a particular way, you can check for those in Pozotron as well. All right, kind of speeding along, hopefully not too quickly. But with that, gotten through most of it, I did want to just quickly let you know the best practices of getting in touch with our team and dealing with some of the most common common errors that'll come up with Pozotron. First one listed here is PDF issues and OCR that have to do with OCR and ligatures. This is if you've ever seen Pozotron return a bunch of gibberish in the proofing page or on the suggestions list, it's having difficulty reading your PDF. And I wanted to say we put a lot of work into optimizing our algorithm and our pipeline to read these PDFs. We also have some tools that can quickly resolve this for you. So if you do run into that, don't give up on the project right away. Please let us know, and we should be able to handle that for you. You can also do upload tests. So let me show you quickly. If you upload a project or a manuscript before you upload your audio, you can actually make sure Pozotron read it correctly using the import export button and looking at book full text. So before you upload your audio, if you want to just make sure it's going to work, you can export this, and this will show you what Pozotron understood from the script you uploaded. So if this is looking like gibberish or there's weird words and random symbols in there, that shows you there's an issue with the PDF. And we'd really appreciate you getting in touch with us using this Get Help button. This is the best way to get in touch with us for any issue you come across in Pozotron, because this actually shares the project that you're having any issues with us automatically. So we can jump right in, see what's going on, and help you resolve it as fast as possible. You can also email us directly at help@pozotron.com, but I would recommend using this as your first go-to. And I did show you earlier where to access our Pozotron tutorials. You can also go to support.pozotron.com to see our knowledge base. Question from Liz. When it comes to uploading the manuscript, is there a way to add, say, an intro if it wasn't part of the original PDF? That is a great question. And yes, absolutely. It's actually hidden in plain sight. There's a button here to manually create a chapter. So this is really helpful, like Liz said, for an intro or maybe an acknowledgement section, something that's not in the script that you do need to narrate and you want to proof. You can click this button to give it a chapter name, but you can actually paste the text that you want Pozotron to consider the script for this audio into this field here. So you just copy and paste all the text in there, upload your audio file here of you narrating, this script. And when you hit create, it'll upload a chapter the same way. It'll look the same as these, but instead of using the manuscript you uploaded, it'll use whatever text you drop in this field here. So Liz, I hope that makes sense. But yeah, you are able to proof those sections that way. Okay. Almost done. A couple of things to mention that are new.
I can just jump in on the
Yeah.
one more best practice thing here, Johnny.
Sure, go for it.
Sorry again, I'm on my phone because of my power issues right now. So will we be getting a recording of this meeting? Yes, they're all posted to our YouTube page. A question from Liz as a follow-up: what if the author replaces, say, chapter 1 with an updated version? Yes, if you've got an update to the PDF before you've uploaded any audio to proofing, there is a way, and Lindsay, maybe you could provide the how to replace a manuscript tutorial page. So there is a way to do that. If it's after you've uploaded audio, then yes, you would use the manually created chapter button feature there. And then finally, question from Liz. This may be a sensitive question. I love using the Pozotron proofing tools, especially the pickup packet. I was cautioned recently by another voiceover artist that uploading a manuscript to Pozotron might be copyright infringement on my part, as perhaps I shouldn't be sharing a yet unpublished doc online. What do you make of this? So, great question. When you upload audio to Pozotron, you are essentially telling us that you have the right to allow to upload the audio to Pozotron and provide us, being Pozotron, the ability to process the audio according to our terms of service. So according to our terms of service, we can do 3 things with the audio file. We have to actually process the audio in the script to allow you to use our services. We process the audio in the script for troubleshooting purposes. So if you have a support ticket or something like that. And then we also we include those audio and text files in our training data set. So very important to understand, our training data sets are for internal use. We don't share them with other third parties. We don't do anything, we don't sell it. We don't share it with anyone externally. However, you are giving us those rights. So your ability to use Pozotron depends entirely on your contract with the rights holder, be it the publisher, author, whatever. We don't have access to that contract. We're not a party to it. So as uploading something to Pozotron, you are basically saying, yes, Pozotron, I have the right to do this based on the owner of the audio. Having said that, if you upload something that is yet unpublished, it is not going to leak. We're not going to share it with someone because we take security very, very seriously. So hopefully you understand there's just, a decision you need to make. If it's not explicitly in your contract, that's a decision you need to make, and we can't advise you one way or the other. But in terms of our terms of service, you are basically telling us that you have the right to upload it to Pozotron. Yeah, hopefully that's clear.
Perfect. Thanks, Adam. Well, we're 1 minute past, so I don't want to hold anyone hostage, but we did have some new features come out. We always put a little list here, and there is a feature release log if you want to see in detail what we've released in the past few months. They're all listed there. But thank you so much for your time. I hope this was helpful. If there are any last minute questions, I'm happy to stay on and answer. Yeah, hopefully you learned something. Hopefully this was helpful. Thanks, Liz, and no worries about the question bombing. We love the questions. They make it a lot more fun. So thank you so much for that.
Thanks very much, everyone, and appreciate the engagement.
All right, we'll send the recording out, have it on YouTube, and usually next day or 2 days. But if you need any help in the meantime, let us know. And have a great Tuesday. See ya.